Would punishment torture, real or fictional, at first seems easy, but is actually pure hell?
Tickling. I'm not kidding. The Nazis sometimes used tickling as a form of torture. Furthermore, when you tickle someone, you don't leave any marks. This torture was also used in places like psychiatric hospitals where patients were subdued and where staff at times were sadistic as they could be. In particularly severe cases, tickling can lead to urination, vomiting, and loss of consciousness due to lack of air. Moreover, it's easier for the torturer to inflict this kind of torture for a long period of time. Their conscience doesn't bother them because the victim lasts involuntarily. In general, it's easy to pretend that this isn't such a terrible and awful torture. Goat licking. In medieval times, a wrongdoer would be tied by their feet between two wooden boards and their feet would be sprinkled with salt or something salty. After that, an animal, usually a goat, would be brought in and it would start licking the person's feet. At first, it seems ticklish, but the animal doesn't stop and keeps licking. As a result, the goat licked away the flesh and gradually got down to the bone. Support us by liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Just a few clicks for you, but a huge motivation for us to grow. Got questions? Drop them below. We read everything and always reply. The best ones might even show up in our next video. When I was about 10 years old, I was sometimes made to stand in the corner of the living room and stare at the wall for hours. At the same time, my parents and brothers and sisters were sitting in the living room.
Kneeling on grains of rice.
In Italy, it used to be a common punishment to make children kneel on hard, uncooked chickpeas. And in Hungary on Corinth.
Seesaw produces the same terrible sensations, if not worse. My knees were bleeding after just 1 hour.
Keeping your hands raised in the air for a long time reminded me of school, when I would ask the teacher if I could go to the bathroom. Or that time when you finally gathered the courage to ask a question and the teacher just doesn't notice you in your raised hand.
They make you listen to the same song on a loop and then they skip parts of the song. This is one of the forms of torture used by the CIA and it's just awful.
May I ask, what are the consequences of such torture?
If the same song plays nonstop for several hours, you will get used to it. You'll learn the lyrics, feel the rhythm and timing. You'll even start noticing minor things like individual drum hits. In general, you will gradually become completely accustomed to the song. But if after 3 days the song, having paused, starts playing again from the beginning but with some small changes, you will immediately notice that something is wrong. Your brain will start to resist because it's already so used to the melody. In simple terms, you'll start having panic attacks and so on. It's like seeing an abnormally large bruise on your body that appeared out of nowhere. You would start to panic too.
Waterboarding. If any of you don't know, in the early 2000s there was a big discussion about this. Some people called it torture, others kept repeating the following. What's the big deal? So water is poured on a person's face. So what? In general, with that phrasing, it seems like some kind of nonsense, not torture. It's just a matter of laying a person down, securing them, and starting to pour water on their face, right? What's the problem with that? I remember that a brilliant idea came to a conservative radio host. He wanted to prove on live air that it's not as bad as some people claim. The guy called his employees and told them to perform this water practice on him on live air. And you know what? I respect this guy for what he did. He had a strong belief and he was ready to go through such abuse to try and prove his point. However, he only lasted 15 seconds and then he passed out, started wheezing and coughing in 5-second bursts. Finally, he was able to utter, "This is really true torture." Then he asked to take a break to collect himself. Good on him for admitting he was wrong.
Clutch a piece of ice with salt water and hold it for some time. This is called the Salt Ice Challenge. People hold a piece of ice for as long as they can, and it often leads to frostbite similar to 2nd and 3rd degree burns. What's more, the ice essentially bites into your skin, so if you try to unclench your hand, it will tear off a piece of your skin. You have to use warm water to get the ice off your hand. I did this challenge about 20 years ago, even before this thing became popular on social media. It was brutal. Edited, given the popularity of my comment, I feel the need to warn you, do not try to repeat this at home under any circumstances. Has anyone seen the Black Mirror episode called Mike Christmas? Imagine you're locked in a room where there's nothing, like absolutely nothing, and all you have is endless boredom. How awful. I don't remember in which country this torture was used, I think in Russia or Japan, but it doesn't matter. It was called the white test. They would put white clothes on you, lock you in a cell with white walls, no windows, and a completely white door. You had a white lamp with a light bulb but no lampshade. The bed and bed sheets were also white, and they fed you exclusively white rice served in a white bowl with white cutlery. You were given water poured into a white cup. After a day or two, you would start to have hallucinations due to the lack of visual stimulation.
The bed and bed sheets were also white. Just poop on the bed. Like, just smear your crap all over the place, then not go insane.
Well, that's one way out, but then you'd have to endure the stench of your own poop.
A small price to pay for sanity.
Release from punishment for a crime by reason of insanity. Instead of a temporary prison sentence, you get An indefinite prison sentence in a poorly funded, terrible medical facility. You might even spend the rest of your life there. Hooray! On TED, there's a great article about a journalist who interviewed a guy in a psychiatric clinic who faked being crazy to avoid a prison sentence. The guy says that he lied to the court, pretending to be insane. He thought that he would be able to pretend to be crazy for a while and then miraculously recover and be released. Nope. It turned out that convincing people that you are sane is much harder than convincing them that you are crazy. The guy started trying to convince people of his sanity, and the psychiatrist diagnosed him as a psychopath. After all, of course, only a psychopath would try to convince people of his sanity. He started trying to do things to show that he wasn't a psychopath, like repenting for his actions, which obviously only convinced the doctors that he was a psychopath who was trying to manipulate people by feigning emotions. The guy spent 14 years in a psychiatric clinic, even though he could have only gotten 5 years in prison for his crime.
Being an outlaw in the old days, that is, if you were labeled a criminal. Today we simply call anyone who regularly breaks the law a criminal. But in the old days, being an outlaw was a real punishment. If you were declared outside the law, it meant that you were literally outside the law and could not count on protection. If someone didn't like you, that person could calmly beat, rob, torture, or even kill you. When Robin Hood is called an outlaw in fairy tales, this is exactly what is meant. It's not about romance, heroism, and banditry, but about a position where a person had no right to any legal protection. The king, or whoever he gives the order to, would take away your land, and any person who wanted to could take your things. Plus, if someone didn't like you, they could beat you to death, and no one would do anything about it. Furthermore, a bounty could be placed on your head, and then people would start hunting you down to get money. What do you think would happen in our time if you lost the ability to receive legal protection, and anyone who brought your head to court could demand a year's salary as a reward?
Solitary confinement. You might think that isolating certain people can have a useful effect on society, but in reality, it damages a person's mind so much that many come out worse than they were. I wouldn't wish that on even my most evil enemy. It's strange to see that in many TV shows about prison and documentaries, they use solitary confinement as a career punishment so easily. Like, oh, you messed up, you caused us problems, go sit in a solitary cell for a week. Nevertheless, in many countries, this punishment is banned because of its inhumanity. Since the question also touched upon made-up torture, I'll mention the one from the TV series Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It's been copied a couple more times in Black Mirror, and science fiction probably used this concept even before DS9. Basically, the idea is about time dilation. The concept is that in the real world, time flows at a different speed than in some other place. So as a punishment, Miles O'Brien was tied to a chair for an hour and given a sedative, and he dreamed that he was serving a 10-year prison sentence. Or maybe even longer. But the point is that in his consciousness, he was locked in a cell for many years. In this dream, he was apparently deprived of food and definitely had no communication. In the end, he woke up and only 1 hour had passed in the real world.
There's a short manga in the horror genre. It's called The Long Dream by Junji Ito. The plot also revolves around a similar concept. A man ends up in a hospital because every night his dreams get longer and longer. Gradually, his dreams become so long that in one night, he lives a whole lifetime. And upon waking up, he barely remembers what happened to him at all. In the end, his dreams become thousands of years long, and the situation becomes truly terrifying. Highly recommend. Also recommend Stephen King's short story The Jaunt. Same concept. Some rise lived whole years in a single instant, and it caused total fucking havoc.
When we went to Africa to visit, we learned that in some places they have their own form of lethal injection for criminals. It's done through a snake bite. A viper literally bit rapists and murderers on both ankles. After law enforcement officials confirmed the presence of the bites, the guilty were sent home under supervision to spend their last day with their family. Some people believe this sounds like a more humane form of execution, but it's not like that.
Kneeling on salt. When I was 16, my mom told me that if I continued to act the way I was acting, she would punish me, make me kneel on salt. Being a silly girl, I said that was BS and not a punishment at all, just salt. Well, I continued to show my character. Then my mom poured salt on the tile floor in the kitchen, and I had to stand up to my knees in salt for half an hour. The crystals scratched my knees and the salt burned the wounds. I'm 32 now and I still have scars on my knees. I'll get ahead of you and say, yes, I know this was abusive behavior from my mother. Mom was pregnant at the time and was not in a good psychological state. My sister is 16 now, and my mom has never even given her a slap. Just recently, my sister told me that, in her opinion, I was just a bad, disobedient child since my mom treated me that way. I told my mom about this conversation, and she said, "You weren't a bad child." I just had a difficult personality and didn't know how to handle it. I'm an adult now, I have 2 children of my own, and when I heard her words, I burst into tears on my way home. I understood intellectually that I wasn't a bad child, I rarely caused trouble, never used drugs, etc. I just had character. But I didn't realize what a heavy burden was on my heart. I was the eldest of 3 children, and I got it the worst. I always blamed myself for everything. Even when I finally overcame some issues and restored my relationship with my mom, I still kept blaming myself for something. I didn't even realize how much I needed to hear those words from her. Our conversation happened 3 weeks ago, and I'm writing this now and crying again.
Support us by liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Just a few clicks for you, but a huge motivation for us to grow. Got questions? Drop them below. We read everything and always reply. The best ones might even show up in our next video.